Hello everyone, Zelrant here, and we have more details of a transcription of everything that was viewable in the last CN video on all the new update coming out, which includes a good chunk of the kit for the new T-Doll, which is going to be named Lainey, which is originally UMP 40 in the first game. And I've looked up the lore on her and kind of understand the context with it, and it makes a little bit more sense now with the whole mental image that she creates, or a copy of herself, and how it's going to work lore wise. At least should be. We don't know yet. We don't know the story on it. But we got a good chunk of the details here. Now, there's stuff missing here, so some of these skills may be missing a little bit of context of how they interact. One thing I know that's missing on her kit is it does not have her passive included, as well as we're missing one of the skills on Lainey. So just know this isn't everything, but we do have a good idea on all of the skills that they did have the data on because we have the numbers included. So we'll get a good idea, but we're not going to have everything until we get like that chart that shows all the skills and what's coming with her. So I'll have to do a follow-up when we get that, but for now we can kind of look at that as well as everything else the video showed that's coming out. They have a bunch of images directly from it that we can look at. But let's go ahead and let's look at Lainey as a character in a kit. So she is going to be Sentinel class physical. So she's the big physical unit that is coming out. This is actually really, really good for us in global because Yuhi is most likely going to be the unit after Vector. And one thing I've been saying is we want to know, like, who's the big physical unit that's coming out in CN that Yuhi is going to be able to complement really well. And so Lainey's going to be that one. So you're going to be able to know kind of a gist of what the entire physical team's going to be with Lainey and whether or not you want to pull. So we're going to have the information ahead of time on whether you want to pull for Yuhi. Because with Yuhi, you definitely want to at least get one dupe to make her work really well with physical team. If you want to make her a general unit for all elements, you want to go up to 3 dupes. So this is going to help a lot with that. But let's go ahead and just get right into Lainey's skills here. So Lainey's skills, so her skill 1 is selects one enemy within 7 tiles, dealing physical damage equal to 100% or 180% of attack to it. Mental image, so that's the mental image she creates, will activate its S1 with itself as the skill center and no longer use an active attacks during this turn. If mental image S1 did not hit the enemies that are hit by Lainey, S1 ignores 60% of the target's defense. Mental image S1 and Lainey's S1 both applies 1 stack of Umbrella Care 2. Now, I didn't see any details on what that actually is, but it's a 2 version, so there must be a 1 version, I'm guessing. And this may be a debuff that already exists in the game that's got a weird translation, because I don't know what that is. If anyone knows, just go ahead and let me know. But it applies that on the target before attacking and increases critical damage by 20% against the targets whose defense is lower than or equal to 0. 5 stability, 0 cooldown. So it's kind of a little tricky with the skill looking at it. The big thing is if mental image S1 did not hit the enemies that are hit by Lainey, it ignores 60%. That kind of gives me an more of an AoE type attack. Like if you have multiple enemies, she's going to be able to do a lot of damage to the enemies that Lainey didn't hit because they can be in separate areas of the map there. So I'm wondering how that's going to work. And we'll look at the mental images skills as well because they're completely different from Lainey's. But it looks like a way that she can do a lot of damage in an area with that one. And then we have the ultimate, which we don't have the skill 2 here. That one wasn't shown in game as we saw when we watched the video. But we now have the ultimate, which selects one empty tile within 7 tiles and summons one mental image and applies 2 stacks of Umbrella Care to all enemies within 3 tiles of the selected tile. So this is really showing kind of an AoE type attacks with her. And increases Lainey's Confectance Index by 3 points. Lainey and Mental Image both gain Bond of Potential 2 for 1 round. Don't know what that buff is either. And then at the end of round, Mental Image decreases Lainey's Confectance Index by 2. If Lainey is has insufficient Confectance Index or Mental Image dies, the Mental Image will return back to Lainey. This skill cannot be activated when Mental Image is present on the battlefield. When Lainey or Mental Image deals damage to enemy units whose defense is lower than or equal to 0, the other half gains Bond of Power for 1 turn. So this is a lot in this skill. So this is basically the way you get the mental image to exist. It looks like you want to stack a lot of Confectance Index for Lainey to maintain this mental image because she's draining it as she's out on the field. It only gives her 3. Lainey's mental image takes 2 of it. So I'm wondering if there's other ways that she can get Confectance Index to maintain it. I'm going to guess that's going to be included in some of her dupes. So maybe the dupes are going to allow her to keep this thing available at all times. Well, if you're a V0, I'm going to guess that you're going to have like a turn or two where it maybe is down and you're going to have a weaker DPS. Just my speculation. We don't know the details on that yet, but that looks pretty important there. And then you got some more buffs and stuff that are going to be included with this ultimate. So overall, I really like this so far. But now we can look at the mental image, which is got its own skill set here. And so this is, like it says here, like it said up here, though, this is all from the demo. We have to wait till it goes live to really understand for someone that kind of test it out and how it works. They just showcased it. But they did show that you can select these skills yourself and activate them. So for the mental image, S1 selects one enemy within 7 tiles, dealing AoE physical damage equal to 120% attack to all enemies within 3 tiles of that selected enemy. So if there's a bunch of enemies right next to each other, it's going to hit all of them around there. That's the one we saw where it was doing the gold map with all the guys right next to each other and did a lot of damage to all of them. So it's going to do that. But then you have the nice part here. If the skill hits 3 or fewer enemies, for every 1 less enemy hit, increases damage multiplier by 20% up to 180%. So basically, if you're hitting one, this is really good for bossing on it, because while she appears to be a very good AoE type damage dealer, you do have the ability to kind of scale it up when you have less enemies being hit to give it more damage. So that's really good there. That's going to make her a lot better at bossing than you'll see with some other characters. Lainey will activate S1 against the enemy and no longer use active attacks in this round. And it kind of seems similar to the S1 on hers as well. If either one of them uses their skill 1, the other one's going to also use their skill 1. So you don't have control over, say, doing S1 on Lainey and then S2 on her mental image, or the other or the other way around, basically, based on this. It looks like if you want to do the skill 1, they're both doing their skill 1. And then you have, if the skill hits a target whose defense is lower than or equal to 0, which, I mean, if you're building the physical team, this should be fairly easy when you have Yuhi, who's like the big defense down person, and then they have a bunch of stuff built into their kits as well to do it, as well as some of the weapons we have in the game. Lainey will ignore 60% of the target's defense. If the skill activation fails, Lainey can only activate S1 during this turn. Mental Images S1 and Lainey's S1 both applies 1 stack of Umbrella Care 2 on the target before attacking, and increases critical damage by 20% against targets whose defense is lower than or equal to 0. 3 stability damage, and no cooldown on this. So this looks like one they can kind of spam because there's no cooldown. It's kind of tricky on how it's going to work completely, but definitely looks like pretty good skill that you'll probably want to alternate every other turn, or if you don't have a cooldown available, seeing as it has a 0 turn cooldown. But then let's look at now her skill 2. Skill 2 for the mental image selects one empty tile within 7 tiles, dealing AoE physical damage equal to 120% attack to all enemies within 3 tiles of the selected tile. Lainey will activate S2 against the selected enemy and can no longer use active attacks. So I didn't see that part on here originally. So it looks like they're both either doing skill 1 or they're both doing skill 2, because they kind of force each other to do that skill. If the skill hits 2 or fewer enemies, Lainey's S2 deals 5 additional points of stability damage. So here's some big stability damage we have on it for bossing. If it hits 2 or fewer enemies, 5 additional stability damage. If the skill activation fails, Lainey can only activate S2 during this turn, meaning if you don't do anything, she's only going to be able to do her skill 2. So they're kind of tied, and it makes sense with them having the mental image. They both have to do the same skills as the other one. And so that one does 3 stability damage there. Then you have her ultimate, swats position with Lainey and gains an additional attack for self. So that one's hey, I'm going to swap with you. So I kind of have the general gist of the rotation just looking at it. So you summon with this one, she comes out. And then after that, when it's her turn, you can use the ultimate to kind of swap. And then when it comes to when you're actively attacking, you pick either S1 or S2, whichever one you're going to be using. attack the enemy with that, and it's going to force the other one to use their S1 or S2 based on what she used. And that'll be the basic rotation. Now, we don't have the passive or the skill 2 for Lainey, but that's the general idea of the kit. We'll kind of have to see how it all synergizes together when we have all of the data and all of the stuff on it. But we have that. So now look at everything that'll be coming up as well that's going to be included outside of her. So we have her event, Reflections in Imprisoned Butterflies. I know a lot of people mentioned that with the whole lore behind her and the butterfly incident. I have read up on that, and it's kind of depressing on that story. But I'm guessing many people are going to want to understand that story when we get this on the English side. So you'll want to look into that to understand what's kind of going on with her character when we get to it. We have a bunch of new outfits. Lainie's outfit from Girls Frontline 1 Legacy outfit. So her outfit from Operation Butterfly. Peridia's Operation Penchinian outfit will be available in the achievement shop. So, that one's going to be a free one that you can get, just like what we're going to get with Vector in our next one. It looks like Peridia is going to have one in there. Then that's going to be great. I like that one. I think that's her best one. And my Peridia at this point in the game is still going to be getting heavy use. So that'll be a really nice one to get. Added accessories for Klukai's outfit, Astral Luminous. So I'm guessing this is the paid one that we just had available with Klukai. So they had added now the ability to swap the look of it, which we saw a little bit in the images. We'll look at the image here in a second. And then more new and old outfits to be outfitted with accessory system in the future. So I like this where they say old outfits to be added into the accessory system. So anything that maybe came in the past, current ones that we've got are going to get accessory systems in the future so you can alter them. So if you already have them, they kind of just came with the kits. And then we also have the new oaths. They're adding Lainey and now Krolik. For all those that like Krolik, she's now going to be able to be oathed. And as we already know, they've been making it where we're getting a lot of these things a lot sooner. So I'm expecting Krolik. We're getting Graza right now, and they got Graza pretty late in CN. So I'm expecting Kroliks that actually come fairly quickly for us, for those who want to oath her. And then when we take a look, here's all kind of the images. Here is the one on, that was just the kind of start of it, what the event looks like. We have Lainey's thing here. And this is where I kind of got mixed up in it. For some reason, I was reading this is an E, but that's the I here to make it Lainey. And so that's her model there. And just another one for the event when it's available, 5/16, or 5/6. So May 6th is when it will be releasing. So this is probably when we're going to have all of the details come out. So we'll be able to go over the kit in full. So just kind of have to wait for then to get all of the details. And then Peridia's new costume looks really good. Like, this one's definitely going to be the one I use when we get it, especially since we can get it for free in the costume shop. And you can see with Klukai's, the accessory system on her. Basically, she has the battle armor one that we could have bought. This is what it kind of looks like with the accessory. Basically, she's just taking off a lot of the cloaks with it, taking off a lot of the armor in the accessory system, and then putting some cat ears and stuff on it. Looks pretty good there. And then we have, the new oaths, so you'll be able to oath both of them. And here's the one, it didn't mention it there, but it's going to mention it below. This is Faye's expansion key, which we'll take a look at here in a second, because we do have the details on her key, because it was right here when they showed it. And then, I can't remember what these parts are. I think it's more event-related stuff. Oh, and then this one is the last one here. This is kind of showcasing the history of prior events. So, the Ulrid and Suomi event is now part of the story. The Klukai and that is part of the story. And we'll be able to read it down here. It's a little bit easier to see. But they added, right here, added main stories into the main story campaign. So we have the Suomi and Ulrid one right here. It's been added into the main story. So for those that missed those events, you'll be able to watch it in this mode here. You have Deep Oblivion, which was added in. And I think in CN they already had Klukai's and Mishti's, so they didn't need to add it in. They just added in the last one they had, plus Ulrid and Suomi's, because they were kind of just in the middle of the storyline there. So that's really good there. And that's going to be great when we get it. So the people that missed all the prior events for story-related things, just know you will be able to see them in the future when they get added in for lore purposes. So they will be coming. And the ones not mentioned here are already in the CN version, which is why they're not mentioned here. Okay, so let me go up here to Faye with her expansion key. Faye, when dealing damage against enemy units with open wounds. So these are a lot of these are debuffs that she places on them that makes it where she can do more damage and reduces defense. I'm not going to go over the details in these specific debuffs. Just know it's related to doing damage from her as well as defense reduction. Against enemy units with open wounds, ignores 50% defense. So now she can ignore even more defense. She already had defense ignore in her kit. And that one's pretty huge, as we already know, with Yuhi giving a massive buff to anything above 100% defense reduction. So even though you're going to go over 100%, most likely with this, it's going to be a huge increase alongside Yuhi. And then attack is increased by 15% when Faye uses her ultimate No Survivors, adds 2 stacks of laceration, and getting these stacks of laceration is important on Faye for doing damage, so that's just another damage increase there. And then when using Flying Axe or Revolving Axe from Faye's passive, inflicts movement denied to the target for 1 turn. I don't know how useful that's going to be, but movement denied is going to not allow them to move. We'll kind of have to see how important that CC becomes, because when we go to the new systems here, we do have the new EX difficulty coming out to the new event stories and challenge mode, rewarding players that clear the event in EX mode in ID card background. So they are adding the harder difficulty, and that is going to be, you're going to have like the trophy of beating it with your ID card background, so when people look at your card, you'll be able to see that they defeated the EX mode, which is great. I'm wondering how challenging this is going to be, if this is going to make it where you're going to want characters that can CC, or specifically AoE, or any other specific conditions to make it where things like this right here, movement denied, make it where there's that actually have some value, and you can't just like take a V6 Klukai or something and just melt the entire field, or even a V0 Klukai and just melt an entire field. So we'll see how the EX difficulty comes out. But yeah, we have that. We have those new modes, or the new stories being added in. Add event stories to the past events section. So they've moved some stuff around, like macchiatos, into the past events, so you can watch all that. More event stories have been added in the future, so anything that's not currently in here from past events are going to be added later. Added sex change potion to the game, allowing you to switch your sex once. This potion will be given to players for free. Unknown whether it can be obtained using other methods. They're going to make it available to spend money, so you'll get it one time for free, and then if you want to switch at any other point, you can probably pay to do that. But that's good for anyone that wants to switch from male to female or female to male. It lets you do that. A lot of gacha games have that, so it's great that they're adding that in. Lore tidbit. Apparently, Persisia made the potion. Okay. I guess they're giving it a lore reason, just like the Oath Rings, even though it's not part of the actual, it's not canon in its existence. Mini games, coordination drill, typhoon season added, so a new mini game, a map that is more windy than usual. I don't think we've seen anything on it. It just kind of mentioned it. System optimizations, phase breakthrough, rework in progress. The first phase of the rework has been pushed to the game in the coming patch. So I'll have to get more details on that. More description on each element's role. So they're actually giving you details on this element. What is this element's role? We already kind of know. Physical is kind of all about that defense reduction. Corrosion, all about the AoE. You have burn, all about support actions. So that's probably what it's going to kind of do there, is kind of show this is what the role or general idea of this element is. Added toggle to silence characters' interactions in the game. So if you don't want to hear specific characters that you don't like their voices, you can silence them, it looks like. And then Zuzong had mentioned that Lainey is potentially the physical damage hyper carry that players are waiting for. Stay tuned and find out. I mean, when we saw her kit in here, she looked really, really good. So it's ultimately going to come down to the whole entire kit, including the passive and all that. So we'll have to see. It says hinted. I mean, if they're giving a physical sentinel, they're going to be the carry. Or they're going to be waiting for the next character to hopefully be it. But she's definitely going to be the physical carry. The devs spent a majority of the video, around 10 minutes, mansplaining about the changes to phase break. What, I don't know, manplaining about the change to Faye's breakthrough, which already is in the aforementioned links above. And Lainie's event will cover the origin of her and how she came about. Spoilers for Deep Oblivion, which I will not mention here. Like I said, lore reasons of how she exists from Girls Frontline 1 and all that are going to probably be in there. So you'll want to pay attention to, if you're not going to ever want to play Girls Frontline 1, you'll probably want to look up her lore just so you have an understanding of it when we get to it. But we probably have plenty of time until this event's coming out. But overall, that's pretty much everything there. I wanted to just cover it real quick. Once we get the entire kit here, which looks like it's going to be on May 6th, we'll actually go over it in detail and kind of see how it's going to rank when it comes to the physical team. I think she has high potential to bring them up in the meta. It just really depends on how much damage she can do and how important AoE is going to become. I mean, with this new EX mode, maybe it will be the new challenging mode that really makes it where you're needing more than just a boss killer. If this really wants big AoE and stuff in there, I mean, alongside Klukai, she may be another one that can do that. Who knows? We'll kind of have to see there. But yeah, that's pretty much it. If you like my content, if you could like, comment, subscribe, it really helps. And thanks for watching.